And so, moving on to another story, a story that we said we are going to come back to when we, got everything, gathered all the evidence, because we did a story earlier in the year about Jonathan Majors, where this situation dropped when when he got those allegations kind of thrown at him. Now the decision has been made; he's been found guilty. Let me pull up the article right here. This is from Variety. So it says Jonathan Majors guilty of harassment and assault. Jonathan Majors was convicted of assaulting his ex-girlfriend Grace Jabari after a domestic dispute earlier this year. A Manhattan jury found the Marvel actor guilty on Monday of 2 misdemeanor counts of harassment and assault, but acquitted him on 2 other counts. The 6-person jury found Majors not guilty on 1 count of intentional assault in the 3rd degree and 1 count of aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree. Majors, wearing a dark gray suit and seated in the courtroom with his attorneys and current girlfriend Megan Good, did not react when the verdict was read. Somebody's got they made a meme out of his face when he kind of heard the news. Have you seen that meme?
No, it's on Twitter because I'm not on Twitter anymore. But
Yeah, it's been kind of circulating on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull it up. But yeah, I mean, is this kind of surprising to you? Have you been following this case much?
I've been following it a little bit, and I obviously know that he was found guilty. I feel like the only thing that I find shocking, shocking, is how fast Marvel reacted to this. Just because we all know like what happened to another star in another franchise, a star that literally groomed people and like basically kidnapped people, and I don't think anyone died, but they were like he did definitely injured some people. But Ezra Miller, Ezra Miller still has a job. Ezra and it's very well that we know of still has a job, just because James Gunn said like he's open to continuing like the Flash's story in his universe. So I find it interesting that like DC and Warner Brothers is kind of like they're still kind of like weighing their options with Ezra, and then Marvel is just like, nope, Jonathan Majors, you're fired. So it's like, yeah, very,
Yeah.
very, very, very. I don't want to like say like my true thoughts on this, but I feel like people can kind of fill in the blanks on like how privileged uh, Ezra Miller is in this situation.
Mhm. So you bring that up, and let's discuss that for a little bit.
Yeah.
So in a situation, I don't bring up Ezra Miller. I was gonna bring up Ezra Miller anyway, as like,
Mhm.
well, Ezra Miller still has a job. Why doesn't Jonathan Major still have a job?
Mhm.
I think bringing it up as things should be treated fairly, even though not everything is always treated fairly and everything is the same and one, in every situation. I think that Jonathan Major should be fired. I think it's just bad for Marvel, bad for Disney to have him, especially when he was found guilty. And I think it's bad for
Mhm.
DC to keep Ezra Miller with all the heat he's going. Not to say that anytime anybody gets allegations thrown at them, they should just be dropped. But Marvel, they did wait. They did allow the trial to play out. He was
Mhm.
guilty. I was like, okay, at that point, it's like, okay, there's anything that we can do. And there are other actors a part of the MCU that also have other allegations. Like you have the man who played uh uh on Wakanda Forever. I'm blanking.
Oh shoot. Um.
Namor.
Yeah.
Namor.
Yeah.
I heard he's got like allegations against him. Let's see how that goes. Are they going to drop him? You've had people who in their past have had domestic disputes, like Josh Brolin, who played Thanos, had domestic violence things that was in the past there
Mhm.
before. But with Ezra Miller, I was honestly surprised because I really thought at the end of the Flash they were going to replace him. I
Mhm.
really thought that. I really was like, okay, there's no way you can keep them as the Flash. Like, there's just no like all the stuff that they got going on. Like, there's just no way. But they kept them, and this movie, I said, and people were saying like, what if this movie's a massive success, and what if that's gonna keep? But this shit bombed. The movie bombed
Yeah.
like crazy. So you didn't even have that to fall back on. Of like, well, hey man, we got to stick with you because that movie you were in was such a great hit, and everybody loved you as the Flash. I think people as the Flash, as Ezra Miller is like, he's okay. I don't think is anybody that super committed to Ezra Miller as the Flash. Like, I can see nobody else playing the Flash other than Ezra Miller. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't really see any. I think that their performance in The Flash is pretty great, to be honest, but I wouldn't say that it is the best superhero performance that I have seen, like, ever. It's kind of like, overshadowed by Michael Keaton, which is super funny that it, like, Ezra's performance is just, like, it's so, but everyone's talking about Michael Keaton, like, like, from that movie, and all the people around them. It's, I don't know. It's, yeah. It's it's a very, sticky situation all around, and I do agree with you that at least Marvel did wait to see, like, what until, like, a jury of his peers, like, basically, like, came to a decision. I just found it to be pretty quick.
Yeah. And did you see the video of him running away? Did you see that video?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's it's actually kinda crazy, like, to see I'll pull up the video here, but this was
It's
the
like security cam
yeah,
footage?
it's like, of course, TMZ, they got it. Of course,
Yeah,
TMZ gets everything.
yeah.
But this was the photo I was talking about right here where you kinda heard I think this is the
Oh,
verdict photo here,
jeez.
and somebody was saying it kinda looks like one of them, paintings that black people had in their house, like, on Good Times or some shit,
Oh
like,
my
they
god.
have in them black family households, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Um
jazz music stops.
I mean, it kinda does look like a jazz musician there that you kinda have there in, a black person's house. But I'll pull up the footage of him kinda running away here in a minute. Uh, so yeah, I mean, they did wait for the verdict to be announced. So I thought that was good. But I mean, and people been talking about with this, have you ever seen such a meteoric rise of an actor's career? Because Jonathan Majors was super hot. I mean, he was like blew up insane. Because I remember him, I first saw him in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which was a small indie movie.
Mhm.
And he wasn't even the lead in that movie. He was like the supporting character in that movie. And then all of a sudden he's getting lined up with all these things, Marvel movies, Creed 3, the Lovecraft Country, big HBO show.
What
Like
was that movie that was supposed to come out? Did it already come out where he was playing like a bodybuilder?
well, he's playing a body no, that movie hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but he has that movie like lined up. So like I will agree with you. I haven't seen like this rise of an actor and then absolutely like fallen basically because of some some mistakes that he had, and it's but which is it's interesting that like he was found guilty because like kind of like the whole like Vin Diesel like situation. It's kind of similar to that because from what I hear from Jonathan Majors, like all of his friends say that he's like a really nice like human being, and like they're shocked that all this stuff is true like about him, which is like has me shocked as well. Where it's like I don't know. It's just it's very troubling to hear.
Yeah. And this is the footage of him like running away here where he's getting into a fight with this guy. And then they were running for a
Oh
minute. They were
dang.
running blocks here. Is where they were running.
Oh, that's
And like he was trying to get away here. But yeah, with I did hear because when this story came out about the whole domestic stuff with him and his girlfriend,
mhm,
there were reports like on set. Apparently, he's like a big bully and very abusive and manipulative and things like that. Like
right.
on, I think the Creed 3 set that people were talking about that he was on. There were very bad reports about him there. So of course, like when it rains, it pours. So it's like when one thing comes out about a person, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that motherfucker was always an asshole. Like
Right.
yeah, I got a story about him and this story and that story. Uh, so like kind of all of it kind of comes out at once when something like that kind of happens there. Um, and then so yeah, I don't want to get too much into the nerdy Marvel stuff, franchise stuff, or whatever. But what do you think? Do you think recast? Do you think get a new main villain? What do you think?
I think it's pretty easy to just recast just because there's not a lot of kind of like especially with like shows like Loki with you can just say it's like another variant, and also there's not a lot of movies like with Kang, like all like movies or shows with Kang. It's like you really just have Loki and then Ant-Man Quantumania, which I don't think a lot of people remember anyways because not very good. So Um, yeah, I would say just recast, or I've mentioned this on my podcast as well. Um, I would like to see Marvel kind of pivot into the villain from Guardians 3. The
Mhm.
oh shoot, what's the actor's
High
name?
Evolutionary,
Yeah, well,
Chwetti, Uweji? Damn, I
yeah,
fucked that up.
yeah. Thank you for butchering that because I was about to butcher
Uh,
it, but I think the High Evolutionary was a really great like antagonist in Guardians 3, and Marvel should be give sending James Gunn a
Chwetti
Christmas card.
Iwiji. I think that's somewhat
A
how you say
Ouija, I think.
it. Ooh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, brother. Great, you
Yeah.
were great and has High Evolutionary there in Guardians 3. Love you in that.
But
Uh,
it I Marvel needs to be sending James Gunn a Christmas card at this point, just because like what he left Marvel before going to DC, I think is a very interesting replacement for Jonathan Majors. But
yeah.
but yeah.
And this was Guardians 3 was one of the few great superhero movies of the year,
Hmm.
that they had. The High Evolutionary was great. Everybody really, I think, really loved the High Evolutionary. I think when we did our review of it, I said that, hey, like, don't get this confused with Kane because he's another black man all in purple who can control people with his mind. Um, so yeah, I did love his performance. People have talked about that maybe doing like he's kind of another variant of Kang or something like
Hmm.
that having, and that's him right there, where he's another variant of Kang. Um, and then they've changed the title of Avengers 5. So Avengers 5 is no longer gonna be Kang Dynasty. I think they officially changed that they said, so that's no longer a thing. Um, Whether you should recast or move on to another villain, I could see recasting, but I think would probably just be better if you just brought in Doctor Doom. I think that's what people really wanna see is Doctor Doom. He's
Hmm.
more popular than Kang anyway. I think at this point, the Marvel really needs something to revitalize things again, get people kinda really excited to talk about something again. And even though with, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, I didn't like that movie all that much, and I think most people kinda were kinda meh on it, but one thing kind of walking away from people did go was, well, Kang was very good in it. Jonathan
Hmm.
Majors was very good in it, as he is in a lot of the projects that he was in. But I don't think anything it wouldn't be a big shock because he's relatively such a new character that just got introduced that it would be like, "Okay, well, we're gonna just kinda move on, like, put that on the back burner a little bit and bring in a new villain." What do you think about bringing in maybe Doctor Doom or something like that?
I would I as a Marvel kind of like casual fan, like I do know who Doctor Doom is, so it would be very interesting to see him like in the MCU. But this might be a little controversial, but I've seen someone like mention this, but uh, on Twitter or Threads. But uh, do we even need more MCU movies at this point?
You think it's just done? It's like, we don't need any more?
Can like we had our can we just have just like just Marvel movies like here and there that don't have to connect? Like I don't think I don't know. Like the it's either it seems like Marvel like they're trying to like lead up to something like bigger, and they did that once like with the first like few phases, and they did it really well.
Mm.
Now they're just kind of like, oh, we're doing like our own kind of our own thing, and then we're building up to. It's like they can't decide what they want to do, so it's like I don't know. It's just it's that's my question. It's like, do we even need Marvel anymore?
I mean, whether you like it or not, I mean, I think we're just gonna keep getting Marvel. I
Yeah.
mean, whether you like it or not. I mean, it was like I said, the only successful superhero movie for them this year was Guardians 3.
Hmm.
That was pretty much it, and then the Marvels, obviously, that bombed. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think,
Loki was good.
Loki
Loki,
was good. Is
yeah.
that considered a bomb? Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium? I think it kinda barely made its budget back.
I think it. I think it like. I think it made its money back like on streaming and Blu-rays,
Yeah.
but it kind of bombed like in theaters for sure. So.
Yeah. So that was obviously a misstep, but you have the Disney Plus series, which a lot of people talking about with the
Hmm.
Disney Plus series. Actually, speaking of What If actually premiered today. or yesterday.
I should probably watch that
What if
actually.
season 2, and they're gonna show each episode of the season, but with all these Disney Plus series, are how invested are people in that? And I think with the Marvels, one thing was you had 2 new characters in this movie who you kinda had to see Disney Plus series in order to kinda understand who they were because they both got
Mhm.
introduced in those things, so it's like more Disney Marvel content. It's like, maybe people are just burnt out on all this fucking Marvel Disney shit, and like you said, superhero fatigue is like, I'm I didn't think it was a thing before, but then I'm seeing, like, Aquaman 2 and fucking Flash, and I was like, "Ah, shit, okay." Uh, so, maybe I'm getting a little sick of the superhero stuff a little bit, so, yeah.
Yeah. I generally like the Marvels, but I understand, like, the sympathy that, like, you had, like, with that movie just because it is a sequel to a Captain Marvel movie that people were pretty lukewarm on,
Mm.
and it includes 2 characters from 2 Disney Plus shows. One Disney Plus show wasn't even about that character, it was about someone else. Like, which is it's a very weird property, I will have to say, just because it asks a lot for its for the audience to, like, just be prepared for. Where it's like, yeah, it's a it's very weird. I thought it was fine. I thought it was kind of mid-tier Marvel, but it's just yeah. I would honestly be happy if it's just none of this connected anymore and we just made like good movies again. Because that's what that's like when you think about it, like that's kind of like what the original phases were. They were just kind of making good movies and then connecting it like afterwards. It wasn't like they had like this grand like plan like all along.
Mhm.
Like it's like just go back to making good movies. That's what it's all about. Like
Yeah,
don't like yeah. It's yeah.
yeah. So go back to Jonathan Majors. So it says, um, he faces up to 1 year in jail, but he could be sentenced to probation. I don't think he's gonna get jail. I think it's probably gonna be probation.
House
Uh
arrest probably.
House arrest, community service, something like that. I mean, hey, if he does go to jail, I mean, the brother can protect himself. That's for sure. I mean, I think hey, he's got the body for it.
Right.
I think he's gonna do pretty much okay. So hey, so he's got the body for it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I know a lot of people just disappointment in terms of, like, you see this guy, especially a black actor, being as high profile as he was, like I said, really Star Wars really rising high. I mean, in all these different franchises, all these different things, and then people were really rooting for this guy, and then all of a sudden come out and then he does this stuff. It's like, come on now. And yeah, I mean, and I reserve space for people who obviously, black men in the history of the criminal justice system is not great. Um, but I don't think you should be putting on your cape for this guy. I don't think this is one of those situations there where you should be doing that. And I know it's a dynamic of obviously interracial relationship comes into play with a lot of things there, that
Mhm.
dynamic and things like that. But yeah. Hey, how's it going there, Tiger Woods Gaming? Good to see you, man. Hey, thanks for stopping by. But yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's just gonna be just probation. You think anybody, will work with him again? You think after just if there's enough distance, maybe like 2 years, 3 years, you think people are like, "Okay, well, you
I
be in some more stuff again?"
I think anyone can bounce back, like, from anything like this. It will obviously take some time, but I feel like Jonathan Majors is a talented enough actor that people are gonna wanna work with him again.
Mm,
'Cause, like, look at someone like Robert Downey Jr. that had, like, all these substance abuse, uh, like, issues that he had, and now, like, look where he is, like, right now, but it's, not saying that, like, the like, what Robert Downey Jr., like, did is the same as Jonathan Majors, but I feel like it just takes time for people to just kind of, like, one, kind of, like, get over it and, like, time kind of, like, pass, but, yeah, it's, it's always tough to, like, talk about stuff like this. I'm just glad that the person that was affected by this, like, justice was served for them, and they, yeah, it's just so unfortunate, that all this happened, so, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll see there. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of an actor who'd be like an apt comparison, that somebody who did something messed up. I mean, we've had things like people who've come out like Michael Fassbender, there was, like, stuff with him and his ex-wife, that domestic violence. We mentioned Josh Brolin. Gary Oldman, I also think, also had similar things.
I'm kind
Uh
of thinking, like, off the top of my head a little bit, like, you go ahead and if this is a weird comparison, but kind of like the whole John Morant issues. Like,
oh, from, the basketball player?
yeah, like,
Uh,
I'm kind of like, if people, like, listening don't know who that is, like, basically, like, got in trouble with the league about, like, flashing a gun, like, multiple times, like, on live and, like, just kind of hanging out with, like, the wrong crowd. So,
mhm.
do you think that that's kind of like the Jonathan Majors, like, situation of him John Wick? But that's actually funny. I like that a lot. But do you think that's kind of like the whole Jonathan Majors situation where he's kind of like maybe
Uh,
he was hanging out with like kind of like the wrong people or something like that? It's just I don't know. It's
um, I think with the John Morant thing, I mean, as far as I mean, he'll still be in the NBA. I mean, you know what I
mhm.
mean? Because he's
Well,
very
he's playing
valuable.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's playing now, and he
Yeah,
got
huh?
suspended for a while. I mean, if he keeps repeating, like, let's say if he keeps showing guns, doing stuff, I mean, will
Yeah.
they officially just go like, "Okay, you just can't be in the NBA anymore?" I can't see a point where I mean, he would have to do something, like, to the point where he, like, goes to prison for him not to be in NBA anymore, I think.
Mhm.
And playing sports is there's tons of records of people playing sports. It's, like, kind of a different realm because even though there has been times where the players have been caught doing domestic violence and they cut them, like Ray Rice was somebody they just cut. Kareem Hunt was a football player, they cut him. He used to
Mhm.
play for the Chiefs, and then they cut him for that. So it's a little bit of a different scenario. I think with Ja Wick, I mean, damn, I said Ja Wick. Damn, Tiger Woods game. Fuck. With
Uh,
John Moran, I think, yeah, that was a little bit more like young kid, bad crowd. He needs better
mhm.
influence around him. You can kind of give him a little bit more leeway there, even though I mean, it's still stupid what he does. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still dumb, but it's like, okay, it's a little, you know, and also getting all this money so fast, you know what I mean, in this point of your life at this age, coming from the environment you come from, it's a little. I think it's a little bit different. I think
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think kind of like J John Morant. I almost
he was
said
a
John Wick. I was about to say, but, like, John Morant getting, like, the, kind of, like, rise to fame, kinda similar to Jonathan Majors, where, like, his fame kind of, like, skyrocketed, like, real quick, like, he was, like you said, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, probably one of my favorite A24 movies, and then just kinda goes into the MCU and just kinda, like, skyrockets from there with, like, Creed 3. It kind of like shows kind of like the cost of like that type of fame like so quickly where it's like it kind of had a I'm not saying that his mental health wasn't like in the right spot, but it's just like it kind of like these people are people too, and like they're going through stuff and like that this is why I'm like so careful about like what I say like on social media like when I criticize like an actor it's like they've made decisions just like you and me where it's just yeah it's I don't know what he was going through at that moment but it's just yeah it's yeah it's very sad that like it's at this moment now but
yeah, yeah, yeah. Jonathan Majors, yeah, yeah. I know I fucked up. My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, I'm fucked up. Well, hey,